Welcome everyone to our first Focus Farmer Foundations for Success webinar. We're really grateful for you all to join us this morning, and I'm joining you here from the Adelaide Showgrounds where our Livestock SA office is. We'll start at the Foundations for Success. So we're really wanting to look at what the important parts are for ourselves to be able to manage our businesses during some of these times that we're facing. So I've got Bron, Stedall from Pinion Advisory today to talk to us, and I'm really excited to share that information with you. So I'm Pene Keynes. I am the project manager for Livestock SA. This series is really being put together because what we've been observing in our industry is some significant challenges that we're about to face and we are facing. So really wanting to look at, while we can remain positive about the future, there are really good signs that things are going to get better. But while we get through this part, we just want to really focus on what we can do to be able to protect ourselves and keep our businesses as positive as possible and keep working through these things. So gratefully, we've been able to access some support from the Farm Business Resilience Program through the which is jointly funded by the Australian Government Future Drought Fund and as well as Government of South Australia. So PIRSA have been a really big part. The other partners I want to share with you that we've got on board is also some really great support networks here in South Australia. So the first one is the SA Livestock Consultants, who have partnered, and in the subsequent webinars we'll be featuring some of those consultants. We've got Sheep Connect and AgX Alliance as also partners. So Bron Stedall is the People Development Consultant from Pinion Advisory. She's working with groups, individuals or couples, and she utilises talk therapy and education to help facilitate positive change and improve well-being. Bron also supports farming businesses to overcome issues with succession when conflict stands in the way of positive outcomes. So, and let's get underway. Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks very much for having me. The one thing that I keep saying to people is that we're always one conversation away from feeling better, or one conversation away from thinking differently, or one conversation away from making somebody else feel better. So please don't avoid having that conversation. You know, it's one little conversation can be so significant. So that's definitely one message I'd like to get across. But there's also so much that I'd love to share. So I'm gonna get stuck in now. We are covering 3 key concepts. I'm just going to touch on what resilience is, and then I'm going to unpack what goes on within us with our whole thinking and feeling stuff, okay? Because that's fundamentally behind so much of a behavior and coping strategies. And then we're going to look at some of the key things that we do thinking-wise, which is responsible for so much of our suffering. Okay, so resilience. If we look at how do we define it, one of the most significant, I reckon the best definition I saw for that was this. The fancy way of saying it is the development of adaptive outcomes and the avoidance of maladaptive outcomes during adversity. So that's a fancy way of saying it's the ability to choose a healthy way of reacting in stressful situations. And we're gonna unpack that and look at how we can achieve that further on. And a key takeaway here is that we cannot be resilient or develop resilience without facing adversity, about the tough stuff, sadly. This is to help understand behavior. How it works is that when we have an experience, so especially something stressful, that experience triggers a feeling response in us. Now, there are 2 parts to our feeling response, and they interlinked like this, affecting each other. So the one part is biological. There's stuff that goes on within us, and the other part is psychological. So if we break that down and we look at what is a feeling actually, you can see a feeling under a microscope. It's a chemical reaction within us. They're called neurotransmitters, okay? So our feeling response, chemical. Now, when you're feeling in love and you want to kiss and cuddle somebody, what you're actually feeling is oxytocin. When you're feeling good, you've won the footy game, or you're hanging out with friends and having an incredible time, that's serotonin and dopamine that you're feeling. Now, the one that causes us the most strife is cortisol. Cortisol is the actual stress response. And when things are extremely heightened, you'll get a healthy dose of adrenaline kicking in as well. Now, in response to that chemical, our minds are meaning-making machines. So it's not just having a huge hit of cortisol. We automatically make sense of that through our internal thoughts. And more often than not, that stress response makes us create meaning by making all sorts of assumptions. And it's that relationship that they drive each other, which means that the quality of our thoughts will influence how long and how strong we get that chemical response. And that chemical response, if it's the good stuff, we have happy thoughts. If it's the cortisol and adrenaline, we tend to have negative or stressful thoughts. So it's a cycle that drives each other like that. And what I want you to understand about the chemical side of things is, because a feeling is a chemical reaction, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the quality of our thoughts are going to determine how long we have a feeling response to that experience. And it's this relationship that shapes our reaction. So our reaction always feels justified because of the feeling response and what we made it mean. Now, it even gets more interesting because our brains are a learning machine, right? So it learns to lock in that association between the experience. So it could be a person, a place, or an event. It learns to lock it in, and the next time something similar happens, it goes, right, I know exactly how to make you feel. I know exactly what we're going to think, and it's kind of lock it in, Eddie, and that becomes a reinforced neural pathway. So if you had an argument with somebody and you see them walk down the street, it might even be 2 months later, and you get a stress response just to seeing them, or the fact that their name popped up in an email, that's evidence to you that your brain has locked it in. So that is how a person, place, or event becomes a trigger for us, and how our reactions readily become automatic. So if you think about it, this process of having a feeling response and creating meaning starts at a very, very early age, which means that those associations are from the past are also affecting you today. Isn't that? Now, we all know that Some days we can handle stressful things like a boss, and other days we can't. Other days it doesn't take much for us to flip our lids, right? So I want you to think of us kind of having a stress cup and a happy cup in us. Okay? So what that means is that even though in the moment we are responding to individual events, the strength of that chemical response is also going to be influenced by what else is going on in our lives behind the scenes. One of the most significant things, geez, what makes my fuse super short is when I haven't had a good night's sleep, okay? So we've got to have awareness around what else is going on for us, what else we are dealing with that is filling our stress cup. So the quality of your sleep. There are some people that haven't had a decent night's sleep in years. Financial things, worrying about weather or volatile markets, or worrying about kids or relationships, or worrying about so-and-so. Like our stress cups can be running pretty high. And for some people, there's no reprieve. Like they run with a full stress cup for years on end. And especially looking at farmers, there are very few that prioritize or understand the importance of filling their happy cup. So, and filling your happy cup is not just about going fishing or catching up with friends. Like that is incredibly important. To do things, play sport, it's incredibly important because it's filling your dopamine and serotonin levels, right? But I want to say that the most significant contributor to how full our happy cup is actually looking at the quality of our core relationships. Because if you had two farmers side by side facing the same issues and the same stresses, the one that comes home to a family that are happy to see each other and their big hugs and kisses, and there's that solid, healthy relationship, they invariably are going to last mentally and physically longer. So please never underestimate the importance of prioritizing close relationships, of opening up to your partner, and even using these trying times instead of shutting down and closing, locking people out. Use this as an opportunity to strengthen relationships and strengthen the bond. So I would love for you just to take stock of all the things that are going on behind the scenes for you that are contributing towards stress levels. So with regards to this, I want you to understand that in any given situation, you are responding to that person or event neurochemically, and others chemically, and also psychologically, which is shaping your reaction to things. But the exact same thing is happening for the other individual. Their behavior is also determined by their thoughts and feelings and what they make things mean. So on that note, what we make stuff mean, the assumptions that we make, is incredibly significant, because 2/3 of the assumptions we make, most of the time, it's not true. We make up, I'm going to use the word, we make up so much bullshit in our heads, and it's so significant because those assumptions, they are shaping our beliefs. They are shaping our values. They are it's just core to our self-worth. And this is what we have control over. And if we think about it, every type of therapy, right, is about helping you make new connections in your brain so that you can think and feel different. So if we look at mindfulness or meditation, what that's about is if you focus on your breathing, that has an impact on the chemicals and biology and things like that. But while you're paying attention to that, what you're not doing is creating too much negative story in your head. So it breaks down that connection. If we look at PTSD, what they do there is exposure therapy. So they go, if you've been bitten by a dog and you have a huge fear response to dogs, what they'll do is they will put you in a room with a tiny little puppy so that you can play and have cuddles, so that you can tell yourself a different story, so that the next time you see a dog, you don't have that big adrenaline and cortisol response. And then they put you in a room with a slightly bigger dog. And then a week or two later, a slightly bigger dog. So you're breaking down that connection. And to understand PTSD, by the way, a few months ago, I wrote off the company car, so I got T-bone. Okay, it was my fault, but that's another story. But during that time, obviously, huge adrenaline response to writing the car off. And what I found was that for the next 3 months, every time I'd be driving, the minute a car was approaching from the left or the right, freaking, my temperature would drop, my heart would jump for the next 3 months. And it was by month 4 that I realized, okay, my body stopped doing that. So that's a very normal response because the brain had locked in that association with danger and keeping me alert. Now, PTSD is if you have an experience that gives you that massive chemical response, the brain always pays attention to things that make you feel significant chemicals, right? So if you have experienced something that gives you massive cortisol and adrenaline, it pays attention. With PTSD, what you find is that you will have that massive adrenal response while you're doing random things like watching Netflix or maybe sleeping, or not just when the car's approaching. So when the car's approaching and I'm getting that stress response, that's normal. But if I started getting those massive stress responses while I'm in Woolies doing the shopping, then I need to get more support for that. Then that resembles something closer to PTSD. And the other thing I wanted to mention was that this stress response is often not in proportion to the experience we're having. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, I'm heading to South Africa on Tuesday to go and I'm the bridesmaids in one of my best friend's weddings. And so I'm in this WhatsApp group, and the girls are organizing all sorts of stuff. And cut a long story short, I messed up. It was one of the messages was about somebody finding new and better accommodation and cheaper accommodation because it's a destination wedding. And Nikki, the bride, was covering my accommodation for the weekend because I bought the flights, and I just wanted to check with her that whether it's paid for, sorted, or whether she wants us to change because the rest of the group are changing. Anyway, an hour later, I opened my phone and my WhatsApp thing is blown up, and I look and then there's just messages like, "You pork chop, what have you done?" Anyway, cut a long story short, this was actually, I had given away the whole surprise weekend that they had planned. Anyway, the point of that story is that that's the closest I've ever had to having a panic attack. My heart was beating out of my chest out here. I couldn't think. I wanted to cry. I could battle breathing because I just thought, oh, they're going to hate me. I've ruined everything, and they're going to be so off towards me when I go over there. So I'm having all these freaking drama thoughts. And to be honest, that stress response, that adrenal response was worse than the car accident I had in March. Okay, so, and the way we respond is also so unique to us and what we make things mean. So now, coming back to resilience, what we find, so you see, we can see that, is we essentially have 4 types of responses. Now, particularly when we're stressed, okay, so we're looking at our stress response. One is the fight response. So what that looks like is if we automatically not only want to box, but be aggressive or shout or lose our temper, basically, that's one automatic response. The other automatic response is flight. So that is physically walking away so that we don't deal with that confrontation. But it could also be escapism. If you are one that can go and lose yourself for hours and hours on social media, because it shuts out all the worries of the day, that's a flight response. The other one is freeze. And basically, if you are an individual where when things are incredibly stressful, you can't make decisions, you have that decision paralysis, you need to double check everything that you do just to get confirmation that you're okay, that's a freeze response. And then the last one are those of us fawn, where we put a positive spin on everything, because that way we don't have to have any difficult conversations, okay? I'm brilliant at that one. She'll be right, mate. Okay, so resilience basically is the minute we have awareness, we can choose something different. So what we said the definition of resilience is the ability to choose a resourceful or healthy way of responding in stressful situations. So resilience is basically, instead of being automatic, it's the ability to go, okay, this situation warrants me to step up and have a difficult conversation, to voice my opinion or to establish boundaries or to take charge. It's that fight. So there are occasions where the fight response is the most resourceful thing to do. On other occasions, the ability to walk away and then come back and deal with things when the dust is settled, sometimes that's the healthiest thing to do. And sometimes just putting a bit of a positive spin on things is the healthy thing to do. Just remember that that positive spin thing it's just about fact checking the assumptions that we make when we think worst case scenario as well. I'm going to stop now and just see if there's any questions, and then I'm going to tell you how we use this model to help us manage stress. Okay,
Thanks.
Any questions?
Thanks so much, Bron. There hasn't been any questions come through the chat, but lucky we've put in the webinar registration some opportunity to ask questions. So I am going to ask one of those ones. So, what personal and professional development can we do to keep stress out of our lives? What strategies are there?
Oh,
And that might be coming up.
yeah,
It might be a
yeah.
little precursor to what's coming up.
Oh, there is so much out there and it always starts with awareness. So, for example, today, take notes, go back and apply what I'm gonna show you. Podcasts, webinars, people, keeping this is all about personal growth, and having that front of mind will make you see opportunities when they pop up instead of ignoring them. It will make you have far more interesting conversations, talk to others about it and find out what they're listening to or who they recommend. Or I've spoken at several places, so there are amazing opportunities, whether it's rural women or rural women's gathering. There's heaps of stuff online. So just being open to it is key. And on that note, what I'm going to share with you now is using this for exactly that, stress management. Okay. Now, if you have managed to print your notes, otherwise, please just write this down. It is on page, I think it's page 4 of the notes. Plan of action. So, yep, page 4. Okay. So, understanding this feeling response, how do we use it? How does it help? Number 1, because our thinking and feeling is so integrated, and we never taught to separate the two. With awareness, what I want is just for you to acknowledge and be okay with the fact that huge cortisol hit is completely natural. It's your body's natural response to a situation. And we need to just be okay with the fact that sometimes our freaking heart races and our stomach knots. Perfectly normal. It's cortisol. In fact, we've got to be grateful for the fact that we can feel, and then things are working the way they should. So 1 is just be okay with that feeling in the first place. The second thing, and probably the most important thing, is our ability just to minimize the negative stuff. Have awareness that, yep, you can think it, but know that it's pure assumption. So this you can't control. Changing this is life-changing. And I'm going to help you in the next section to have more control over that. But minimizing the talk, focusing on your breathing, being okay with this, knowing it's not going to last forever. This is temporary. Minimize this. Then the third point, right? When it comes to our reaction, we are always accountable for how we respond. That is always on us. Always, always, always. And our goal is to be the most functional person in the room. And we have the ability to respond in a way that we are proud of. It's the best feeling in the world if you handle something well and you walk away and you think, that I handled that right, that feels good. And we are capable of doing that all the time. So awareness, taking accountability for our response, reminding ourselves that we aim to be the most functional person in the room is a game changer. So that wraps up the first section, and then we're going to touch on beliefs. We're just going to explore that a bit more. How are we tracking for time?
Good. We keep cracking on, Bron. We're going. I think we're going to go over time. So just being very prepared for everyone to
This is
yeah.
going to be very very short. Okay.
That's okay. No, we want
All
all the
right.
information, Bron. We want you to cover it as well as you can. So
Okay.
don't rush.
All right. So what I'm going to do is just explain that there are 4 filters, 4 things that we tend to do when it comes to our thinking, our minds, okay? The first thing that we tend to do is take things personally. We have an unbelievable ability to make things about us. You know, if in a work environment, if somebody points out that we've made a mistake or something like that, it's often that feeling of he always micromanages me. He always tries to find fault with what I do. You know, he's so quick to point out when I've made a mistake, but I'm freaking working my guts out, and I don't see him saying, you know, thanks, I'm doing a great job. So we have an amazing ability to take one thing and make it mean something else, but an amazing ability to take one thing and make it personal. I always share that when I was 6, my parents got divorced, and what I made their divorce mean was that my dad didn't love me enough to stay. So, you know, those beliefs impact our self-worth, they impact our level of trust. Very significant what we make things mean. So this is the first thing we do, is we take things personally. The second thing that we tend to do when it comes to our thinking is we think in black and white. So we've got a strong sense of wrong or right. And this also shapes our values. But what I want to say here is that the more rigid our beliefs and thought structure is, the more toxic it actually is. And it's quite significant, because basically what happens is that our brain is like software, right, running a program. So if we train our brains to be really rigid in our thinking, black and white, it makes us pretty judgmental. And that whole judging side of things is a double-edged sword, because not only do we judge people and situations that we have no insight into, but we tend to be pretty critical of ourselves. So what you find is that people are very scared to make mistakes or step out of their comfort zones, because heaven forbid they make a mistake. So black and white thinking is the third thing we tend to do. The third thing that we tend to do is we confuse our feeling response with fact. Okay, so if you remember, our feeling response is that chemical hit of cortisol if it's stressful, and what we make it mean, the story we tell ourselves, the assumptions we make. Those assumptions that we make, we believe that our version of events is true. So here, if you look at being in the street and you see a friend of yours across the road, if you give them a big smile and a wave and they look at you and they turn their back and walk into the shop, right? What are you thinking and feeling? So it might depend on the day, but there can be a multitude of responses to that. Clearly he didn't see me, or what have I done? Has somebody said something? Geez, obviously I've thought that you know, that we're friends, and, you know, so there's all these variations. And whatever assumption we make, whatever assumption we choose is our reality. So it's going to shape whether you invite them to your birthday party, whether you bound over and go and say hi to them the next time you see them at the footy club, or whatever the case may be. Like the belief that we've created now influences how we react, how we show up, right? But the question always remains is, how do you know which version of the assumption is true? How do you know that they didn't see you, or that they are actually angry with you, or that they've got a lot going on and that their mind's racing and they're worried about all sorts of stuff? So how do you know? You obviously have to cross the road and go and ask. But ask yourself truthfully, what is easier? Crossing the road and having that conversation, or making the assumption? 9 times out of 10, we will make the assumption, even if it means that we are sad and miserable for a couple of days. That is still easier than crossing the road and having the conversation, right? So just know that that's what we're doing all the time. We are the source of our suffering more often than not. And it's because we apply these filters, all right? So the fourth thing ties in with the third, and that is about understanding that what we do is magical thinking. Magical thinking is the assumptions we make. It is the beliefs that we create. That's what we do. And that is all a psychological construct, and that we have power over to change. So when it comes to stress management, what I'd love you to do is on page 5, this will be a game changer. We're going to flip these 4. So what I'd love you to write is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stop taking things personally, and we're going to allow others their dysfunction. Okay? We're going to allow others their bad days. We are all pork chops sometimes. Right? You cannot take somebody else's stuff and make it about you and impact your self-worth. Okay? The next thing is we're going to stop judging people in situations that we know nothing about. Just stop judging. And then on a side note, be flexible, be curious. That's going to improve your mental health to no end. The third thing is we're going to stop confusing our feeling response for fact. We must be prepared to cross the road and have the conversation. And if we can't do that, just remind yourself you're making a hell of a lot of assumptions. Even that helps, okay? Because then we can just take ourselves a little less seriously sometimes. And then the fourth one is be aware of the beliefs and absolute rubbish that you are buying into and believing about yourself. So those are the core messages from me. Thank you very much for joining me. It's always a pleasure. And please know that if ever you need support, my number is on the worksheet in the front, or you can find me on the Pinion website. Okay, so thank you from my side.
Thank you so much, Bron. I think that's really important information, and I know you keep getting reminded of these things, and the more you practice it, the better off you are. So I am just going to invite Nick Miganelli. He's joining us today as one of someone that's worked with Bron previously, and we're just going to ask you, Nick, really around. So where are you joining us from today? Obviously from a tractor cab.
Yep, I'm joining you from I'm on farm here at Verde Valley. It's just friends and fertilizer.
We know you've worked with Bron through some of these things that she shared with us, and I'm just wondering, what have you employed and what benefits have you got from it?
So yeah, so I guess my little situation, without going too deep into it, was a lot of hairy parts of running a family business. So I was young, I was keen, I was trying to make a difference, I was making a difference, still not. There were just a lot of issues around that. So branched out to get help. Found Bron. Bron was magic. Like proper, like just. I guess one of them. If I only shared one thing with you, it would be, probably one of the bigger wake up calls was how a lot of what was running through my head was sort of self-inflicted in a way. Like a lot of things that I was stressing about, I couldn't control, and was still trying to control or fix them or sort of micromanage, which was putting me in a rut, or making me lose sleep, or not want to eat, or not have the best drive I could or outlook on life. So realizing that a lot of what we tell ourselves, sort of, I guess, learning not to ruminate as much and sort of have a useful belief and not focus on complaining about, whinging about, bitching about things I cannot control. That was a really, really good thing. Learning how to approach people from different angles, and as Bron mentioned earlier, sort of accepting that they are dysfunctional, and sort of accepting that and knowing that you've got to work around that, and that's your situation. Not trying to fix people, I guess, was a big thing that I learned to sort of to not do or try and do. So I guess the long and the short of it is, like, I smile these days. As a period where I probably didn't. So Bron helped me see the light in a lot of these things and gave me the tools, I guess, that I needed to work through this and sort of be a better person, I guess. And I'm still there, still on family farm, still making a difference. And yeah, obviously we all have our shit days and whatnot. But I'm able to see the light like so much easier, like proper easy now that I've sort of taken on these tools. And there are multiple tools. It's not just one. And as Bron said, like, you listen to the odd podcast or whatever, and that you learn something from that, or you have a conversation with a neighbor about, having a rant about a sick cow or something, and then they'll share a story, and you feel a whole lot better. I mean, another example of that is, like, we're going crazy doing sides at the moment. So just having relatable conversations on something that broke, like, makes you then realize that you're not the only person that breaks things, or like, it just having a conversation sometimes is huge, like makes a massive, massive difference on sort of, and making you sometimes you feel aligned, I guess is what I'm trying to say, in what's gone wrong, or, you're the only person that did this, or like Bron mentioned, like she was the one that let the cat out the bag with the trip thing. Like, it's really nice to know that you're not alone. So having those conversations sometimes with the right people are like magic on the old brain box, is what I'd say. So
yeah, that's excellent.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us and sharing that. That's really important. Important messages. Thank you.
Easy done. Thank you.
Enjoy your day. So, Bron, I just want to ask you, so what do you recommend farmers do as a preventative measure? So we've been talking about a lot about all of these things, but what's the prevention things that we can put into place?
Okay. During times of heightened stress, it's very difficult to think straight. So what I'd recommend is to get your ducks in a row now, get contact details, information and stuff on hand. So have your own little database. So whether it's websites, government organizations, state reps, consultants, have a mentor, but basically just give it some thought of who you'll need, what you'll need when things are tougher, and have that ready to go. So make life easier for yourself now. So be prepared. The other point, I'm going to make a few points here. The other point is, don't neglect your core relationships. These times, you honestly, if you open up, if you have conversations, if you reach out, it can bring you guys closer together. So please, please, please don't shut down and neglect core relationships. The other one is, if things become incredibly tough, please seek help. Don't be an idiot, okay? Get help. There is help out there. I'm also a phone call away. And it's important. It's going to be a tough time, but it's important to think big picture and remind yourself that market volatility, fluctuating weather, that's all part of farming now. And you will ride this out. You can ride this out, and it is temporary. Okay. And the last point is that we're always going to face adversity. You can't escape it. But what we can control is how we choose to react, how we choose to communicate, what support we choose to seek out, how we problem solve. In other words, we can ensure that we don't make life a hell of a lot harder for ourselves. Okay, there is still so much within our control. All right, so that's it from me.
That's fabulous. There has been another question come through. You might have already covered it off, but have you got 3 top tips for farmers?
It's just basically what I covered. So definitely don't neglect your relationships, because the quality of your relationships are going to make a significant difference to how well you cope. So, so definitely don't neglect that. One conversation can make such a significant difference to your well-being. So please don't shut down. Please, you're one conversation away from feeling slightly better. Whether that conversation is with your partner or with a friend or with a professional, we can reach out. And what would the third thing be? Geez, there's so much. Stay on the journey. We carry so much hurt and suffering and stuff. But the truth is, we don't have to go through our whole lives carrying a freaking backpack full of weight so it's liberating to be able to deal with some of this stuff, to move forward. And it's a game changer. So the personal journey growth it's just phenomenal if you choose to embrace changing the way you think and feel and letting go of things and healing from things. So that'll be my top 3.
Oh, thanks so much, Bron. It's been excellent having you on, and I think some of these key take-homes that you've shared today are really important reminders for looking after ourselves, but also just being really aware and being able to actually observe some of these feelings that we have and know that they're chemical. I think that's amazing, isn't it? One of the points Bron made was really around that support that's available and the different places you can find that support. I just want to be really clear, like today we are, we're talking about some pretty high level concepts, but if you are feeling that this has brought up something for you or you're seeing signs in other people, please don't be shy to reach out and get some of those support. And it could be on any of the topics. So I suppose the reason why we partnered with these great partnerships is because of the support and the resources that they have available to share. So the SA Livestock Consultants are a really great group of independent consultants that work across all different business areas, so from financials to nutrition and what's on the ground and making some decisions around feeding animals, those kinds of concepts that these livestock consultants. So there's a range of people on that list on that website that will really be able to help you across SA. I'll also point out AgX Alliance. If you are feeling a bit like you want to link up with a group of like-minded people, the farming systems groups, there's quite a few across the state, and Agates Alliance has got a really good resource for how to get in touch with all of those farming systems groups. So if you're wanting to build a bit of a community around broadacre issues, but also look at that innovation space and practice change, because if in your region you're facing something, you are not alone. Like Nick said, there are other people going through it, and community at this time, those relationships are really important. The other resource and sharing is with Sheep Connect. Sheep Connect is the South Australian Wool Innovation PIRSA collaboration that is really about sharing information. So I'm just inviting Tracy Heinrich from the PIRSA, she's a PIRSA Fab mentor. The PIRSA Fab mentors are a really great resource and really able to provide you with some support and network to work closely with, to connect with other services. So really a bit of a referral. But Tracy, I'm probably not going to do it any justice. So Tracy, do you want to just quickly share, what you're seeing and perhaps how you're helping producers in this time?
Yeah, hi. That's look, I'm a Fab. 4 years ago, I hadn't even heard what a Fab is, which is a family and business mentor service. And I'm here on Kangaroo Island. Live here with my family on a farm. We do sheep farming, and have 2,000 acres. We're stud stock producers and sell about 400 rams a year. And we do prime lambs, and we have a full business. We have 2 people working for us, so we are very busy like every other farmer. But we were hit by the fires in 2020 on Kangaroo Island quite hard. My son, who lives across the road a bit, he lost his farm. We lost machinery and sheds and stock. And we were really lucky because we didn't get hit as hard as a lot of our neighbours. They all got hit horrendously. And basically we're at Pandana near Stokes Bay, for those who've been to Kangaroo Island. And basically everyone on west of us were hit by the fires. And I met a Fab at that point. There was we call Fabs. There's 16 of us currently in the state. And one of them were here, and I met them, and they were going around, and they were a real help to all the people that were just struggling at that time. And then after about a month, we run a pretty intense business. Like, we run it as a business, our farm, and we have meetings. And so because we were pretty planned risk management, we were able to move forward. I won't say easily, but we had a direction. So it wasn't quite so emotionally hard to keep going. But a lot of other people were finding it much harder, and especially those who didn't have much support. And I ended up getting asked to become a Fab because I was on the ground and I could be able to help people that I could really relate to what they were going through. And so since then, I've stayed as a Fab, just because there's lots of adversity around. So basically what we do is when there's an adverse event, and it can be anything that's really overwhelming, floods, fires, it can just be that you've just got so much happening, like Bron was just talking about. When you get to that point and you need to just talk to someone, basically we're a free service that is run by PIRSA. We're contracted on just as need basis, as an hourly rate. We've all 16 are all got other businesses and running, but we've made this little space for people when they just need somebody. We can just help them out, and we connect. So we get together once a month, and we just connect with the whole state, and we just know all the connections that you can jump into and help. And if we don't know, we'll go and find somebody for you. And nothing, sometimes just sitting around the table and listening and, just helping prioritize. So that's there's not really many rules to it, but there are people out there. And if you go onto the PIRSA site, you will be able to look up the Fab, and you'll see everybody is right across the state, and we're allowed to move across the state. So, I can go over to the mainland and help. And so, so that's basically, that's kind of what we do. We're not looking for work. If we haven't got work, that means everyone's doing a wonderful job, and that's where we want to be. But if people need us, then it's a free service. It's a bit of a no-brainer, really. And if you know of somebody who you're worried about, your neighbour, you can just ring a fab and they will follow it up for you, so you don't have to do that yourself. So that's what we do. And I'm quite happy that I'm sitting in on this session because I do know Bron, and I just want to say to people that I have worked with Bron after the fires, and you know, being the most functional person in the room is the really big point that I took from that. You know, I was angry, you know, with emotions are high when you're under those massive stresses, and you know, you just start looking for everyone else to blame. And I think taking responsibility of that was a big game changer. You know, having effective meetings probably were two things that have really helped us get back, and I can say almost to a point where we're back to normal after 4 years. But yes, so anyone, yes, you can use Bron individually. She's fantastic. Also, just on the ag resilience side, there's a lot of ag resilience. I've been jumping in on those as well. That's a brilliant program. Risk management, if I can just, after the fires, everything I see, if you can think about risk management and how you cannot think after something big happens, and if it's a death or anything, you just have some things in place so you can go to it, and you can just, you know, not have to think, but you can just follow some checklists. So that's me. And yes, we're getting a bit dry over here, and it's interesting to compare to the rest of the state because we're quite wet, but we still yeah, we can get quite dry. But yeah, it's been a great year for us. So yeah,
Thanks, Tracy.
I'm just going to ride this wave of low prices, and you know, a couple of years we'll be back up there again.
Yeah, thanks, Tracy. I really appreciate that. I think the FABs and as Tracy mentioned, the Ag Resilience program is going to be available again. We're running these webinars as a bit of a stopgap, but we're hoping to get more on-ground workshops coming in the new year to be able to support as many producers to be able to build their own resilience plan and build that network across the state. So the FABs I can really vouch for the FABs, the work that they do, and the value that our participants from the Ag Resilience course have got out of the FABs mentors has been fabulous. Don't forget the RBS, Rural Business Support. There are other resources. I Farm Well, we've got Beyond Blue, Lifeline. If you go on the Livestock SA website, there is a mental health webpage, a Dry Times webpage. So if you are looking for some of those resources, please don't hesitate to get in touch. So I would really like to thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day to share it with us, focusing on that most important aspect, which is you. Thank you to Bron, thanks to Tracy and to Nick for helping with us with today. Again, thanks to the Farm Business Resilience Program for funding Ag Resilience, which is an initiative of the Australian Government, PIRSA, and the Future Drought Fund. Is the Future Drought Fund initiative of the Australian Government and SA government, and our wonderful partners. Please don't hesitate to reach out to any of the partners that we've got to be able to get that support that you need. So SA Livestock Consultants, the AgX Alliance, and Sheep Connect are really great and important resources that we have available here in the state. So thank you all. I'll let you get back to your day.